Why do I get driver issues after installing Linux? Imagine setting up a new computer system and suddenly facing hardware not working properly. That can be frustrating, especially after installing Linux. You might wonder why these problems happen. Well, it all comes down to how Linux manages hardware drivers. Unlike Windows or macOS, Linux handles drivers differently. It relies heavily on the Linux kernel, which is the core part of the operating system. The kernel includes many drivers, but not all hardware is supported out of the box. Most Linux distributions come with open-source drivers built into the kernel. These are designed to work with many devices, but they might not support all features or the newest hardware. For example, open-source graphics drivers for NVIDIA or AMD cards often lack full 3D acceleration or advanced display support. To get full functionality, you might need to install proprietary drivers from the hardware manufacturer. This process can be tricky because proprietary drivers are not included by default and often requiring manual installation. Another reason for driver issues is that Linux distributions often ship with generic drivers to ensure compatibility across many devices. This means your hardware might not perform at its best. For example, a Wi-Fi card might connect but not support all network features, or a touchpad might work but lack gesture support. When hardware updates happen, especially kernel updates, the drivers may become incompatible. Proprietary drivers, in particular, need to be rebuilt or reinstalled after a kernel upgrade to keep everything working smoothly. If you forget to update the drivers or the kernel headers are missing, you could face graphical problems or even boot failures. Hardware compatibility is also a big factor. Some newer or less common devices might not have mature Linux drivers yet. This can lead to missing functionality like sound, Wi-Fi, or camera support. Sometimes, installing a driver for one device can interfere with another. For instance, installing an NVIDIA graphics driver might conflict with audio drivers, causing sound to stop working until you manually fix it. Different Linux distributions handle drivers in various ways. Some, like Ubuntu, offer graphical tools to switch between open-source and proprietary drivers easily. Others, like Arch Linux or Manjaro, requiring more command line work and manual driver management. This means your experience with driver issues can vary depending on which Linux version you choose. To fix driver problems, start by using your distribution's built-in tools. Check if your system allows you to switch to proprietary drivers with a simple click. Make sure your BIOS or UEFI settings are correct, like switching from hybrid to discrete graphics if needed. Also, ensure you have installed the correct kernel headers, which are necessary for building or updating drivers. If issues persist, boot into recovery mode or use command line tools to repair broken packages or reinstall drivers. In summary, driver issues after installing Linux happen because Linux manages hardware differently and often relies on community or manufacturer-provided drivers. Proprietary drivers are sometimes necessary for full hardware support, but they can be more complex to install and maintain. Kernel updates can break drivers, especially proprietary ones, and hardware compatibility varies across devices. With patience and the right tools, most driver problems can be fixed, making your Linux experience smoother and more enjoyable.